Another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, and it is time for Monday Morning Murph with Brian Murphy. 4 and what now, Brian Murphy? 4-0, Minnesota Vikings. Let's kick us off. Your thoughts?
Yeah, just where we expected them to be, right? At the end of September, all the prognosticators, us included, grandma, the guy at the end of the corner that you run into at the bus stop. I mean, everybody thought 4-0 was in the bag. I feel like this is a team now that we have to, not only that we have to recalibrate, the league has to recalibrate. And as much as they may say they've always believed in themselves, I think they have to recalibrate a little bit too internally. I don't think they expected certainly 4 straight wins, but in the manner in which they've accumulated them. And what has impressed me most, and which is what I kind of wrote about to start off this week, is the stat that just sort of hangs out there with them. They have only trailed this season for 3 minutes and 26 seconds. And that was way back midway through the first quarter in the Meadowlands after C.J. Ham had fumbled. You know, the Giants were able to get a quick 3-0 lead. And that is it. The Vikings have been playing not only with a lead ever since, but big leads and racking up big leads and kind of just clubbing their opponents into submission. Now, yesterday at Lambeau, that opponent did decide to wake up and do some damage. And there were plenty of things, both offensively and defensively, to nitpick about how a 28-0 lead turned into a 2-point lead with a chunk of time on the clock and damage to be done. And Green Bay really only an onside kick away from maybe getting a 15-yard play and a game-winning field goal now from a broken kicker. A lot of ifs there. Lot to unpack from yesterday as usual. But the fact that these guys do not give their opponents a minute to breathe and have them on their heels and playing uphill from the very get-go is a pretty good recipe for success, because you may not win every game that way, but you're going to make your opponent crawl out through broken glass basically to even try to get back into a game. And the odds are pretty good that you're going to prevail at some point in a game like that.
It's been such a long time, Murph, since we've talked about a team like this. I mean, 2016, they went 4-0. We know what happened after that, but 2017, clearly the strongest team. And if we just look at 4-game win streak, remember after the 2017 team went 2-2, then they caught absolute fire, just ripped off a bunch of wins with Case Keenum. And then in 2022, the same thing, only those games always came down to the very last play, time and time again, where so far this season, I guess you could call an onside kick the last play, but not really. They were ahead in that game the entire time. The Packers made it interesting at the end, way more interesting than it should have been. But if we are asking who outplayed whom in that football game, it was easily the Vikings, smashing them from the start and then allowing them to come back, as so often happens if you let teams hang around in the NFL. But I think you could still look at this win as being a very strong victory when we're trying to evaluate how good the overall team is. But my question is about Kevin O'Connell. This is the first time now we're seeing him with a team like this, though, because in 2022, it was so often, well, it's coming down to the last minute and they're going to need a final drive from Kirk. And, well, we got it, and I think we know that O'Connell can call plays in the clutch. But playing from ahead, I think, is an adjustment. And he was talking yesterday about showing the team he believes in them. I think he can put that to bed. I think everybody knows he believes in them and he believed in them the whole time. I think it's now time to shift to the most pragmatic game theory that he can have in these situations, and not just, I'm going to make sure I keep passing with Sam Darnold when we're up 3 scores so he knows that I believe in him.
Yeah, or on the 4th and 1 play down there inside the 10, toward the end, I wanted to stay aggressive and keep my foot on the gas. And, you got to figure, you're going to be able to pick up a yard. And if you don't, you're also forcing your opponent to go 95 up against the clock. I don't know. A field goal there would have been sort of a gimme and would have taken a little bit of the edge off too. I like what he's saying, but I think he's got the part here. Kevin O'Connell is the head coach. He's got that locker room dialed in. He's got Darnold dialed in. I'm not sure he has to prove anything else to his roster that he's going to be there for him and we're going to be able to be an aggressive team that is unrelenting. And I want you to all believe that. I think they all believe that now. What's funny is with 2022, he's a rookie head coach. All of these magical things are happening around him. You don't really have a sample size to evaluate, what head coaching in the NFL really is. It's game management and it's play calling, but a lot of that job is Monday through Friday as well, and managing expectations, managing emotions, managing the media, managing the inevitable ups and downs that come week to week, victory to victory, loss to loss, injury to injury. So now that we have an idea, he's had to deal with 0-3 and 7-10. He's had to deal with magic, and now he's dealing with a 4-0 team that is kind of the darlings of the NFL right now. I mean, among, they're there with Kansas City, and of course Seattle plays tonight. But you have a lot more people looking at the Vikings, not maybe as a fluke, but as a bona fide elite team that is only going to run into more challenging, emotional kind of get readiness. And also, we know it's not going to go as smoothly all the time as it seems to. And we know Sam Darnold, hey, he was efficient. He made some great throws. He struck early. He also had, a couple of turnovers. I wouldn't blame the fumble totally on him. The interception wasn't a good spot and a good throw. He also almost had one on that first drive that could have really changed the tenor of that game as well. So there's still moments where you're kind of looking through those fan fingers, but they're fewer and far between, and really none of his mistakes have proven fatal. And until it proves fatal, it's just sort of the normal ups and downs of a game. So I'd like to see now O'Connell dealing with the expectations of being an elite NFL team. This is a tough assignment. You got to get on that plane. You got to go over to London. You got to do all the London things in a strange stadium, in a strange land, in a weird time zone against, a New York Jets team and Aaron Rodgers that doesn't seem to be playing that well, but is going to probably get most of the hype. And whether or not the 4-0 Vikings can even find themselves as favorites for once is going to be a little bit of an intriguing watch as well, and how they respond to that, because they love to play the disrespect card. All teams do. There's only so much mileage you can get out of that. Darnold and the Vikings have gotten about as much mileage as they're going to get out of that trope.
Yeah, I'm guessing that after the Jets played the way they did and lost to a quarterback who threw for 60 yards on Sunday, that the Vikings are going to end up favored in this one for the first time. But I do think, Murph, that there is a different switch that gets flipped at 4-0. And I talked about this at the end of the post-game podcast from Lambeau, where we go from, okay, well, they're off to a really good start here. And if you go 500 the rest of the way, you're a 10-win team, and this is a good position to be in, to, all right, now we have real expectations. Throw out, we are so far removed from preseason prognostication and all that stuff that I'm not concerned with what anybody said before the season. The results now that we're in the season have set the bar at this team should be competing for the entire NFC and should be now a favorite to win the NFC North, to beat Detroit when they face them, to beat the Packers again, and to look at the second half of this schedule. And I'm going to include the Jets because they haven't been that good of a team. You've got the Jets. The Jaguars lost again yesterday. You've got the Colts, who can't keep Anthony Richardson healthy, and he hasn't been all that good. I mean, there are lots. Tennessee's a bad team.
Cardinals.
Lots of winnable games ahead. They've actually gotten through the hardest part of the schedule. So now I think it's fair to just say that the expectation for O'Connell, for Brian Flores, for this team, saved from catastrophic injury, should be go actually compete and win something, because normally the history of this team is once every 10 years, you get one big shot at it. Well, this decade, they haven't gotten their one real big shot at it, unless you think that the 2022 team was it. But I kind of don't, because they got outscored by their opponents that year. So go do it, right? That's how I look at it. I feel differently today than I did at 3-0.
And I think they should embrace that. I'm guessing that they will. I mean, there's no shortage of confidence, certainly on the defensive side of the ball, and there's no shortage of confidence in Sam Darnold, not to be the 350, 400-yard, 4-touchdown guy, but to be the 20 for 24, 250 to 275, couple of scores, shaved down a turnover. He ran a little bit yesterday that I hadn't seen him really sprint upfield. I've seen him go toward the sideline, but he had some moments where, again, you're just wondering with that tender knee, what should he be? But no, he recognized some opportunities there. I think he prevented more disastrous plays from becoming more disastrous. And I think that's been something to watch over the last couple of weeks. I mean, he literally took a sack on some blown pass protection instead of trying to scramble and shovel pass and maybe make something desperate out of nothing. Is that a growing maturity or just a growing realization that this is not a team where I have to make something magic happen on every series? If you can continue to score on your opening series or put up 2 touchdowns in the first quarter and have that kind of a defense already stirring up trouble early on in a game, I mean, I'm almost guessing the Vikings hope teams defer the coin toss now. It used to be an offensive strategy. We'll defer, steal a possession later. I'm thinking the Vikings want that. I think they want their defense on the field to start a game. And I feel like they're a team now that if you fall behind to them, the options and the menu and the level of aggression that Brian Flores can dial up only grows. And I'd be curious what he has to say tomorrow. I'd be curious how sort of the autopsying of that second half performance, what it reveals. I don't think it reveals any large cracks in their system or their personnel. As you mentioned, it's NFL teams are not going to stay down for 4 quarters. They're going to make adjustments and find a way. And Jordan Love, as hobbled as he may be, has still got a beautiful arm and is going to find some people downfield. And Matt LaFleur is a hell of a play caller. So I wasn't shocked to see them doing some things. I was shocked at how I think Minnesota offensively either got away from some of the things that were successful or weren't able to adjust to whatever defensive adjustments Green Bay made. A couple of turnovers, a couple of 3-and-outs, and next thing you know, you're constantly looking at that clock, and boy, nothing like a 28-point margin to really make you feel better.
Sorry, my camera went out for a second.
I just saw that.
It'll pop back. It'll pop back. Here I come. Okay, there it is. Let's talk about Darnold a little bit more, because when we have watched some previous quarterbacks come in and be the surprise story, Case Keenum, Josh Dobbs qualify under this. There was always kind of a debate of, is he going to keep doing it? Is this really real? And part of the reason, because draft status is a metric. It's like something that we do have to keep in our back of our mind, because Josh Dobbs was a 4th-round pick. Like, there's only so much raw talent there that the NFL evaluated when that guy came out. And when you were talking about Case Keenum, it was either undrafted or 7th-round pick or whatever it was. I think it might have been undrafted. And he was undersized and he wasn't that accurate. And his head coach kept going back to, hey, Case, stop throwing it up for grabs like a crazy person. But I haven't thought that Darnold's bad moments have even been, by NFL standards, like the craziest thing that you'll see. I mean, if you watch a Joe Burrow game or you watch a Josh Allen game, these very talented, highly drafted quarterbacks, there will be 2 or 3 plays a game that could have been a turnover. And you go like, well, okay, they're going to have to get away with that because these guys are aggressive and take risks. I really didn't like the throw to start the game that was almost intercepted because it was unnecessary. But I do think he's cut down on those significantly. And then you look at the end of the day and you go, this guy put together a tremendous statistical performance with some great throws into the end zone to Jordan Addison and to Justin Jefferson. That's why it feels different to me, Murph, is that it doesn't have any sort of real fluky element. The great plays, can they keep happening on a weekly basis? Well, with that arm, I think that they can. And the other thing that I've started to notice about Darnold is each post-game press conference, there inevitably is this kind of hint of, Sam, remember when you weren't that good? Like, are you good now? And I didn't feel so much of that yesterday because now we've got so many games of him being good that like you can't really say that. And I just feel like his confidence in the biggest moments for this team, there hasn't been a ton of them. So we've only grasped a couple, has been going up and up and up. And it just doesn't feel like something, Murph, that is going to fall off the edge of the cliff just because of how he played 5 years ago for the New York Jets. I just don't think that information of him playing badly is really all that relevant right now.
No, and what makes the difference to me when you mention Keenum and Dobbs and sort of the, you get these guys that come in and have a few moments of brilliance, and it's a lot of improvisation. It's a lot of gadgets. It's a lot of broken plays that turn into great highlights. The difference is Darnold came with a pedigree. We knew about the arm. We knew about him being a physical specimen in the pocket at his size and his range and his ability to fling or step into throws. And there's a look to it. I think, look, I'm not an X's and O's football expert. I never played the game. Full disclosure, folks, I'm sure you have never figured that out. But I've watched a ton of football, and you know what good football looks like, and you know what a good throw looks like. That throw to Justin Jefferson, I would love to understand who is as much responsible for that touchdown. It's 50-50 receiver quarterback. I don't think Darnold could have put that ball in a better spot. I don't think the coverage was fantastic, and I don't think Jefferson really – how many receivers could have really been able to turn their head and find the ball inches from their chest where it could easily bounce off and rattle away and have the presence of mind to bring that catch in with a defender in your face? Now, an inch or two either way, and I'm not sure that ball drops in there. But the way – when you watch it in real time, it's even prettier than when you want – and you were there. And I'm guessing the press box was down by that end zone. I mean, the way that arc and spiral dropped into that spot, I mean, he literally dropped it into a bucket. And those are the kinds of throws that Sam Darnold is going to make. Case Keenum's not going to make that throw. Case Keenum's going to fling. He's going to shuck. He's going to jive. He's going to move. He's going to probably do some spinning. He's probably going to take a sack before the big play that he makes. Sam Darnold is going to deliver the ball where it's supposed to be delivered, like a professional quarterback, because he's now in an offense with a deep receiving core that can allow him to make plays. And we mentioned it yesterday, pass protection, outstanding again. You've got a healthy offensive line. You've got a receiving core that's getting healthier. Jordan Addison comes in, makes an immediate impact. Naylor, keep him away from the punt returns, but obviously can do some damage. And now you got TJ Hawkinson a few weeks back, probably from coming back, and you've got several options behind him that are developing. Josh Oliver, Johnny Munt, they're not forgotten characters either in this whole offense. The reason, and oh, by the way, Darnold's got 11 touchdown passes. He's on pace for 45 plus. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did at this rate. And the way he's looking doing it, he's hitting everybody on that roster, different spots of the end zone, different routes. It isn't a fade to the corner that's become reliable. I mean, if Jefferson's being taken away, they're finding single coverage. They're finding open receivers. And then you have the Aaron Jones factor. I mean, he comes back into Lambeau. He doesn't get a leap during the game, but he gets the ultimate mic drop by doing a leap into Vikings fans' arms after a victory. I don't see any, sort of weak spots in the offense. The only question is, can they, when they have an opponent on the ropes at 28-0, how do you make it 45-6 without having to sweat through an onside kick?
Yeah, and what a problem to have when it comes to that. Here's Sam Darnold, by the way, in terms of sample sizes and trying to get the biggest amount of football that we can to tell us about where Sam Darnold is as a quarterback. You go back to the beginning of 2022, where he was not coached by Adam Gase or Matt Rule, and he had actually DJ Moore in Carolina and played pretty well at the end of the 2022 season. So you go back to 2022, the last 2 years of this gentleman's life. He has 20 touchdowns, 7 picks, a 101.0 quarterback rating, 8 yards per pass attempt and even 170 yards rushing in 11 starts. The sample size is growing of Sam Darnold being a good football player, and the bad football from Sam Darnold is now quite a bit in the rearview mirror. I mean, 2021 is now many years ago. Mike Zimmer was coaching for the Vikings the last time Sam Darnold was not a good NFL quarterback. And I know he didn't play a lot with San Francisco, but when he did, he played pretty well. So his last 11 starts, that span, has been good quarterback play. My question for you is, I feel like at the beginning of the season, we went into the Sam Darnold experience with kind of fear. Like, don't turn it over, Sam. Just make sure you're checking it down when you can. And I still think this, by the way, that he should be checking it down when he can. Have we turned the corner to this might be awesome, and Sam Darnold ends up in Vikings lore, like as this guy that they've picked up, and then he ends up becoming way better than anybody actually expected, to from fear of don't screw it up, Sam, we've got a pretty good team here, let's try to win a handful of games, to this is actually awesome.
Well, if I'll pick up on the turn the corner metaphor, how about we're just peeking around the bricks and we see a path down the sidewalk that looks clear, but we're not ready to blow our cover yet. That's just what came to mind. Yes, I know what you're getting at. Turn the corner says to me you're safe and back in bed and there's no more bad guys chasing you. I still think there are some demons out there that may be chasing him. So I'm willing to say just keep giving him a little bit more. Giving him a little bit more. I mean, when I say more, like more opportunity to get the ball downfield, maybe some more opportunity to take some riskier throws. But I really don't feel like the need to push that envelope is there quite yet, based on the way the defense has played and based on the fact that they've been able to get on top of people so quickly. It changes the way a game develops. It changes the way other teams and certainly other offenses have to play, and that plays right into Flores and this defense's hands. If you're already playing with so much house money early in a game, there are so many more things you can do, and you can take more risks, and it's not all about getting three and outs and forcing punts so you can finally claw your way back in a game. It's about bleeding clock. It's about, I love the fact that the disguises that Flores has out there, that's all the television analysts will talk about, is drawing up. I don't know how many times Trent Green yesterday had the diagram going of, look at these 8 guys on the line of scrimmage, 4 of them are going to drop back. What I'm getting at is that there are just so many ways to confuse, tempt, and ultimately, attack other offenses when you know that they're going for bigger plays, bigger chunk plays, knowing they're going to be passing when you're playing with leads like the way the Vikings have. So again, I think that still is the game manager aspect of it, is get us some points, protect the football, get everybody involved, get into a rhythm. If you can score every drive and series, that's great. If we're, picking up first downs, keeping our defense rested and ready, that's where they are right now. I think you could unleash Sam Darnold at a certain point. I don't know if they feel comfortable doing that yet, and it's completely not necessary either.
I think he's been unleashed-ish, like unleashed in that O'Connell has found specific spots in a game to say, hey, Sam, take a shot. Or I trust you here when he gets strip sacked or the interception. That was a little too much trust for me. And maybe O'Connell's got to find that push and pull, because the interception is 2nd down and 1. And if they kick a field goal, it's 31-7. And that is over. And instead, it's throwing a fade down the sideline that it could get picked off, and it does. And I know some folks at home didn't think it was an interception, but either way, the defender, Xavier McKinney, is a great football player who got 2 hands on the football. That's not something that should be happening. I think it's more of a emotional buy-in from Vikings fans is what I'm curious about for Sam Darnold, because I think that O'Connell is going to trust his quarterback for the most part, but still does have to avoid pushing him too far. I did feel like with Josh Dobbs, he pushed him too far after getting a little overexcited about how the guy looked through a couple of games. and then that ended up hurting them.
And
The
that was
same
born out
thing.
of desperation because of where they at with an 0-3 start, and they needed to win now.
Right. And with Dobbs, it isn't all that comparable because he showed up in the middle of the season versus Sam Darnold, where they've been working at this. I think that they need to kind of keep the reins on him to some extent because he will get a little wild. I'm kind of talking about even more of just the fans, like buying into Sam Darnold. Everyone was so on board with JJ McCarthy, and it was like, well, the Sam Darnold guy, like he's here, and okay, fine, but we're all sort of waiting around for McCarthy. But then you're forced to have Darnold for the entire season. And I just remember when the news came out, how depressed and distraught a lot of the fan base was. It sounded like they didn't even want to watch the football season, and they just wanted to move on to 2025. And as far as turning the corner, I think that this was the game, beating Green Bay in Lambeau and playing as well as he did, where you could say, no, actually, number 14 is our quarterback.
Yeah, if he goes over to London and helps take it to Aaron Rodgers, I think he has won over every heart and mind, probably in the state of Minnesota. And you got to wonder a little bit, like what I'd love to just hear this is a great problem to have conversations that the front office is having right now. I mean, load up Kwesi with some truth serum and say, okay, really, is this turning into a dream season or your ultimate nightmare where you're going to have to make a decision involving two people that Vikings fans clearly, they've already fallen head over heels for JJ McCarthy, and now they're falling for Sam Darnold while, it's like the fans, they found somebody else while their girlfriend is overseas in Europe, backpacking and out of touch. It feels a little strange like that. And look, that's a great problem to have. We're a long way from declaring Sam Darnold the future franchise quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, but I don't think that door should ever be permanently closed. I thought people in July and August thought there's no way that that'll happen. In fact, if they were middling around 500, that there was the thought that maybe you move Darnold at the trade deadline and get some assets back. Well, that's obviously not going to happen now. I think it's an opportunity to really take in it. We're barely a quarter of the way through the season, but it does set up a potentially thorny but wonderful problem to have going forward with two quarterbacks that you truly believe in. Those will be discussions obviously better for January, February, March, but I love the fact that Sam Darnold is making it difficult for unconditional love for JJ McCarthy. And maybe you wonder too, does McCarthy need to start right away? Would another year, the year that he was supposed to have this year, he'd just be on the sidelines soaking all of this in. I don't know what he's losing necessarily. You could say he's losing a year of development, but maybe that's the development year turns out to be next season, even though Darnold clearly will want a long-term deal if he can leverage this season into something spectacular. So fascinating things to ponder, but certainly things that are a lot different. And I think you're right. I think people early in the season wanted to root for Sam Darnold, and I think that's being fulfilled right now. Whether it's enough to convince everyone that Darnold should stay and McCarthy should either stay on ice or they're going to have to make a decision. Somebody's got to go.
All right. Before we wrap, Murph, what do you need the 2024 Vikings to prove to you before in the Murph Power Rankings 2024 you would have them as the best team in the National Football League?
I don't know what they're going to do in London, even if they somehow don't. I think they will be favored and should defeat the Jets, which puts them 5-0 on the bye, and that's beautiful and sets up a very potentially juicy Week 7 matchup at home against Detroit. Let's say the Vikings are 5-0, and say the Lions, if they win tonight, next week are 5-1. I want to see how they perform in that game. If it truly does set up to be a battle for the NFC North, at least in the first half, supremacy in the NFC North. But then I want to see how they manage themselves through 5-1, 6-1, 7-2, 8-3, 9. As this progresses, And as the schedule lightens, as TJ Hawkinson comes back, as an inevitable lineman or defensive starter goes down for an extended period of time, how are they going to mix and match? How aggressive his floor is going to stay? Is this team, I believe it's going to be carried and defined by its defense, but is it going to be a 60-40, 70-30, or is it going to be more of a 52-48 the offense is playing? I need to see 7-8 victories and a playoff charge before I truly believe that this is going to be a top 5 type, top 10 type season.
Well, I think that,
and maybe a comeback win, because those are always sexy too.
Yeah, that's right. What I need to see, Murph, I think, is Sam Darnold lose a game, because I don't think they're going 17-0. I could be wrong about that. I was wrong that they were. I didn't think they were going to go 4-0. Because if you picked that, you earned a lot of money with Vegas. But show me the receipt. But I do want to see what happens after a bad game from Sam Darnold. There will be one where we just go, oh man, that was just a stinker. Nothing went right for him that day. It could be in London, because that so often happens. I wish they didn't play these games in London, because they don't feel like real games. They feel like exhibition, random
carnivals.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But if he has a bad game over there and has to come back and get his confidence back up and everything, how does that work out? Because if it works out well, then I'm going to think that this thing could go a really far way. If he gets into a rut and it turns into 3 games, then I'm going to be a little bit more concerned. The problem is the streak breaker is number 18. Just yesterday, the fact that he trusts Jefferson in all the biggest moments, like, dude, that's all you got to do. That's really all you have to do to win football games as a Minnesota Viking, is just trust that guy. It has been a remarkable start to the season, Murph, and I have enjoyed your columns. Your latest at purpleinsider.com is 4 and Whoa. So people should go check that out. And we will have another Monday Morning Murph after London next week. Thanks for all your time, man. Appreciate it.
All right, looking forward to it.
Football.